Hello fellow gamers, well another video and Naughty Dog are here again. This time we're all anticipating the remastered version of the game of 2013 and in my opinion one of the best games ever made. Like Half-Life and Half-Life 2, this is a real milestone and watershed moment in gaming and storytelling as a whole. This is a game that is so lavish with love and affection. The passion from both Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley has manifested itself across the entire dev team of this game and cooked up this classic multi-award winning game that we see before us. It touches on such strong and adult subject matter like any well-crafted masterpiece. This is one of those games that you just love talking to anyone about on two levels. If they have played it, then you just go, oh, do you remember the bit in it? And if not, then you revert to, oh, you have to play it. And this is one of the biggest reasons why we're sitting here now talking about this remastered classic. So many PS4 owners have never even played this game or even owned a PS3. In fact, I know over 15 people that haven't. Coming from a 360, a PC, a Wii, or even the first gen for some, this means that this is a cult classic, well, as cult as a 6 million selling game can be, that many have yet to play and experience. So what makes it such an engaging and mesmerising game? Well, the characters, Joel and Ellie, are so well crafted, and the Hollywood level performance of Troy Baker for Joel is such a deep and emotional performance that every little subtlety and nuance in his voice can be heard and felt. He portrays the anguish and dissent of a man so far fallen into his demons that he is not so much a moral line he has crossed, that having left any morality long ago. Make no bones about it, Joel is not a good guy or a hero. He is the kind of guy you would not want pissed off at you, or even mildly annoyed. The Iceman, so to speak, is the polar opposite of Ellie, again voiced so convincingly by Ashley Johnson. She shows all the snarky cockiness of a teenager with the angst and quick mouth to cut anyone down to size, and she is far more low-key and has a steady, if that's the right word to use, entry into the story, but like Joel, is the lion's share of the game. The bond they build and struggle with is a journey you as the player can control at some level, and it is the natural flow of the game that is one of its strongest points. You can see this crazy world through the eyes of these two juxtaposed characters who normally would never even engage in eye contact through the normal circumstances, but are thrust together through a strange chain of events. It is this journey that we go on, and again the strength of the storytelling of Naughty Dog, as they let you control so much, even key moments that other games would whip away control from you. Dialogue and story happens in-game as you play, and some of the things go unnoticed. You may not agree with what happens or what Joel does, and some you may. But as the entire experience unfolds, it is so well told that as you play through you at least understand and even begin to empathise with him. The dynamic in the game is both terror, joy, laughter, suspense and anger. Rarely does a game make you feel, least of all so many emotions as this does. It really is a game first and foremost, but a game that asks of you, shows you and ultimately stays with you. It truly is a game that so many people are going to experience for the first time in its best possible presentation. I'm actually a little envious of that. And this brings us on to the reason behind this remake. The PS3 was such a superb console, and Naughty Dog came and conquered it. And this game is a joy to play and see, but arguably it pushes the PS3 just beyond its limits. And older PS3s, launch ones, it can struggle on some bits with some sound drops or jumping, and the frame rate can suffer at times. Within heavy lighting scenes or action, it can drop into the mid-20s. But these are all minor niggles on such an epic game, but it is nice to have an option of a full 1080 and 60 frames per second presentation. Now just like Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, this is a reprise in around 12 months of development. As you can see, the PS3 version of Tomb Raider was a superb game, very nice visually with great lighting system and facial geometry, and of a great level of detail. The sheer scope of the game and environments pushed the PS3 hard, and Square and Crystal Dynamics really brought Lara back with a bang. But the Definitive Edition was a little bit more than just spit and polish. With an entirely new Lara face model, new lighting with greater dynamic shadows and SSS on skin, physics and tress effects on hair, and the PS4 version gave us a full 1080 presentation and at 60 frames per second. It really is in places night and day between the PS4 and the PS3 version, as you can see before you. And YouTube doesn't really do it justice, and I was hoping that by now YouTube would have got their 60 FPS option available, and this was the reason why I was going to hold this video off. but unfortunately that still isn't coming and could be at least another month or so away. So alas, it is for naught. Now, if you haven't experienced this yet, trust me when I say that it just aids the feel and smooth controls of the game and also helps the IQ. Tomb Raider is still one of the prettiest games on the X1 and PS4. Compared to the PS3, the PS4 version simply has a far more dynamic HDR lighting system. The trees sway in the wind, birds fly around overhead, axe and equipment on Laura bobs and sways realistically, and it just adds a greater degree of immersion into the world as you play. But it plays exactly the same as the PS3 version of Tomb Raider. It is the same game, it's more responsive, the game itself is unchanged. And this is what we can expect with The Last of Us. The 60 FPS presentation in Tomb Raider is very solid, staying north of 50 FPS most of the time. But there are dips, Shantytown is a classic example of that, but they're not common and the game feels very solid throughout. Now Naughty Dog and its coders, and in particular lead programmer Christian Gerling, have already tweeted that the game they've worked tirelessly to make sure that the game runs above 60 FPS so we can be assured of a rock solid experience. Now, just like Tomb Raider, are we going to get a full upgrade? With as little information as they've given us, it's very hard to piece together much. But, you know me, I'll try my best. Now, they say in-game models are now presented with the same quality as the PS3 pre-rendered scenes. Now, these have extra effects added on, like I've said before in previous videos. Higher polygon models, superior lighting, more precise motion blur, better textures, much better animation, and better anti-aliasing. And this is a big leap for the PS4. Along with pushing 2.5 times the pixel count at double the frame rate, it is a big leap to push this. And on paper, the PS4 is around 10 times the power of the PS3, but that doesn't mean much, and it's not that simple. The PS3 was always a difficult mistress, and the architecture meant that all Naughty Dog's code and engine had to be started from scratch from day one with an engine they built specifically for the PS3. A process that Naughty Dog themselves have said was a mistake and they would not repeat. This time round, Naughty Dog have taken their superior engine from the PS3 and upgraded it, transferred it and improved it to the PS4. This feat would not have been easy. In fact, they said that it took weeks just to get broken image on screen, the time to triangle. But this is an internal R&D development that would have had to happen anyway, and just like Square before it, it makes sense to use this R&D on high quality assets and materials that already exist. If they had not done this firsthand, this probably wouldn't have happened certainly so fast, as they can invest a portion into this work and then give it to us with a choice to buy it for the first time or the 50th. Along with the character models, textures will have taken a leap, scenery, enemies, lighting, core aspects like animation, AI and physics would not have been changed, but these were some of the best anyway, especially animation, so this is not really a problem. From what we can see of the small portions on offer, we can see a much cleaner and crisp image, obviously from the big increase in resolution. The 60 FPS also gives us a very smooth CG-like presentation, but by and large it does not look that much different. But if you look a little closer, we can see some of the changes. Now the first thing you can see before you is the motion blur. If you look at the shot here, this is from a pre-rendered version versus the new footage from the PS4, you can see the motion blur between Ellie and Joel as they move is far more precise on the PS3 pre-rendered version. It's much cleaner, it's much crisper, and it's at a much more detailed level. You can see the detail in Joel's shirt here on the PS3, which you can't see on the PS4 due to the motion blur. Again, you can see the lighting in the background. There's additional shadows and shades in the PS3 pre-render that don't appear to be present in the PS4 because the lighting appears to be completely changed. You can see this again with the pipe in the background casts a much longer and thicker shadow than it does on the PS4 version. And all these little things seem to add up. You can see a shot here where the lighting's changed in the background. Look at the building on the right hand side on the PS3 and again on the PS4. You can see that the light contrast is much higher due to the HDR, so it obscures the building from the light in your face. The lens flare across the scene is the same. This also highlights the density and the cleanliness of the scene. You can see the trees and the grass much clearer and crisper, even in the YouTube compressed version you guys are watching at the moment. Now on other scenes you can see in the background here where there's been quite big changes to the doff effect. If you look at the PS3 version here, the doff effect is much less pronounced. You can also see more detail on the ground on the PS4, and also the box behind her has completely changed its setup and geometry. It's all very different. Here we can see the PS4 version scrolling across to the PS3. You can see the DOF is much stronger and harsher on the PS4, with it being a lot cleaner and crisper on the PS3, with the shadows standing out far more, with the again more precise per object motion blur. Now all these little things don't mean much, and you can see it on this shot here, which is a shot from an actual in-game sequence. On the PS3 version here, you can see the motion blur when they move is very minimal. And again, when the explosion goes off here on the PS4 version, it's far higher amount of motion blur. It's all over the scene. It's per object and per screen. You can also see the greatly enhanced volumetric smoke. Again, you can see it on this other shot here, which is again from the actual in-game cutscene and not a definite pre-rendered one. The amount of motion blur going on in this scene on the PS4 is far more enhanced. But look behind Joel's head. You can see the shadow lodding in as it moves in, which gives it a nice sharp clean image. I'm sorry, I'm nearly finished, I promise. Now look at this one. You can see the background, the motion blur, and the DOF specifically is much cleaner and more subtle on the PS4. The PS3 version, you can see that the belt is missing and the screen reflection is far more subtle on the PS4 version. Watch her arm position change as well, along with her face, skin and hair are all different, which are quite big drastic changes for a pre-rendered movie. And you're probably asking, why am I asking that question? Well, we've got a lot of changes. Backgrounds, DOF is lowered, some scenes it's increased, other changes in scenes of detail, there's more or less precise motion blur in certain scenes in the PS3, and cutscenes seems to be affected quite a lot for something that is only pre-rendered, to the point where I'm going to drop another bombshell, just like my 1080-60 bombshell before Uncharted 4 was shown a few weeks before E3. I have a feeling Naughty Dog are playing with this again. And all this talk of show gameplay, why don't you, is just another bait when they say it was all along. The fact is that the motion blur is a much less precise and more akin to what we already know to be real-time cutscenes. And it's a huge step up from the PS3 iteration. We can see that it's at odds with the other clear improvements from the other pre-rendered parts of the video. It just doesn't make sense. I'm going to say that this is their big bombshell. They are going to announce that this game is all real-time rendered on the fly. The issue with space on disk is no less prevalent here with this version of Last of Us. With it kicking in around 30 plus gig size with the DLC content on PS3, you're talking about a game that's running 2.5 times the resolution at twice the frame rate. If you've got around 10 gig of data on this game with videos on the PS3 version, you're looking at least 25 gig. They are getting very close to the space on a 50 gig Blu-ray drive. Plus, it just seems to be at odds with the whole all of our new stuff on PS4 is going to be rendered on the fly. They had a massive bombshell on Twitter the other week, if anyone saw it, and I think that was the point where they got all the cutscenes running in real time on the PS4 at 60 frames per second. And they're probably now moved over to a completely GPU driven rendering pipeline, which is what their massive bombshell is. If they can pull this off within 12 months of starting with their very first game, well, I have to drop my jaw at Naughty Dog and their absolute expertise. Never doubt the gods. With the visuals we've seen from Uncharted 4 already running in real time, and they surpass this masterpiece of a game, I can only think the only reason this wouldn't be working in real time is time. I really do think they've achieved it. And my last reason behind that, the eagle-eyed amongst you may have already seen this in the video, but look in the background here on the shot of the guy when he's shooting at you. Watch the tyres on the car, which weren't present on the PS3 version, lod into display as the camera moves towards him from the cutscene. Now that's not normal for a pre-rendered cutscene. It's not impossible, but it's not normal, and all these things add up. Either way, pre-render or not, real time or not, first time or 50th time, if you own a PS4, you have to own this game. You owe it to yourself and to the machine and to God's sweet little gaming. You need to buy it. It has to be in your gaming collection. And with such a thinking man's multiplayer that promotes team play and cerebral thinking and tactical play, it is such a underrated multiplayer that people should get into, and it adds a real value to this already gem of a game. Well, I've blathered on long enough. As always, if you enjoyed this or any of my other videos, then please hit that sub button. I really appreciate it. Give me a thumb up if you like it, and if not, I'd like to hear your thoughts and feedback. If you do like it, if you don't like it, what do you think of The Last of Us? Are you going to get involved? Do you think Naughty Dog are going to deliver on what I've said? Am I wrong? Do you disagree with me? Whatever. I want to hear your thoughts and feedback below. As also for a little bit of delight for you, what I've done is I've re-edited the whole trailer back through with PS3 footage and with the PS4 footage, so you can get an idea on the visual fidelity, hopefully not the frame rate at this point. As always, you guys and girls take care. Thanks for clicking and watching, and I'll see you soon on the next one.
Underneath the bridge, the top has sprung a leak, and I'm living off of grass, and the drippings from the ceiling. It's okay.